Hello again, this is Connor Gray with Unison Audio, and we have another chord progression analysis from an artist named Arizona Zervas. We're going to look at 3 of his tracks, FML, My Time, and Roxanne. I would recommend that before you watch this video, you try to figure out the chords on your own. And then once you watch my analysis, you can see if you're right and where you went wrong and how to think about it a little bit differently. Okay, let's take a look at our first track, FML. So we have 4 chords in the intro of this song. First up is B flat major. Next we have D flat diminished, or C sharp diminished, however you want to think about it. Into D minor, into A minor. So if you tried listening to the song on your own, maybe you noticed, like I did, I could only hear 2 notes played per chord. And you may be thinking, how can 2 notes be a chord? Don't chords need more than 2 notes? Yes and no. These 2 notes are implying a full chord, okay? So in the bass, we have the note B flat, and up top we have D. What is that? What is the relationship between B flat and D? It's a major third. So this chord is major so far. It sounds major to me because the distance from the root note to its next note is a major third away, or 4 half steps away. When 2 notes are separated by 4 half steps, we say that sounds major. That literally is what the major sound is 2 notes separated by 4 half steps. A half step meaning the distance from one note to the next, like B flat to B is 1 half step away. That's 2 half steps away. So if I play any 2 notes anywhere in music ever, it will always sound major, because that's what major is the distance of 4 half steps between 2 notes, quite literally. So we can think that this chord is B flat major, but it's just missing a 5th. So I'll add that 5th to it, which would be F in this case. See how when I add the 5th to it, so no 5th with a 5th, it really doesn't change the way that the chord sounds. It still sounds fully major both times. The reason that we can take the 5th out and it still sounds a particular way, like major in this case, is because 5ths are very consonant intervals. Interval just meaning the distance between 2 notes played at the same time. Consonant meaning how agreeable or pleasing those 2 notes or chord sound with each other. So 5ths are very consonant intervals. So if I take a 5th away from a chord, it's not going to change the overall quality of that chord because it's so similar to the root, right? Okay. Long-winded explanation on why the first chord is B flat major. Okay. Next we have D flat diminished. In the track, I can only hear 2 notes again, D flat in the bass and E up top. Or we can think it's C sharp, doesn't really matter in this case. So what's the relationship between those 2 notes? D flat and E. This is a minor third, because it's 3 half steps away, okay? Now, what type of 5th does this have? Without getting too much into it, it does have a diminished 5th. Diminished 5th just meaning that it is 1 half step lower than a perfect 5th, which is the type of 5th that we had in the B flat chord. So D flat diminished. And then we're moving up to D and F. This is another minor third relationship. And I'm going to add the 5th back to it, which is the note A. So in my first recreation of the chord progression, I just let each chord ring and added 5ths to them. That's all. So now we're on D minor. The last chord we have is A in the bass, and then a C up top. That's another minor third because A to C is 3 half steps. So minor. I'm going to add the 5th to it this time, which is E. Okay, so here's the chords again. B flat major, D flat diminished, up to D minor, and down to A minor. And then we're back up to B flat again. So this song is in the key of D minor. So thinking that D minor is 1 gives the other chords their relative context. So if D is 1, what is B flat? Well, D, E, F, G, A, B. So that is its 6th chord, B flat major. So we're starting on 6. Next we have D flat or C sharp. Very common move to play in a minor key is playing a diminished chord 1/2 step lower than the root. I believe this happened in one of my previous chord analyses as well, actually. And that's what's happening here. We have 6 going up to 7, 1/2 step below the key and playing a diminished chord there. And that's going to pull our ear to 1, which is 1/2 step above that. So in this case, D. And then the last chord before we go back to B flat or 6 is A. What is A relative to D? D, E, F, G, A. So this is 5 before we go back to 6 again. Up next is My Time. I'm using one of our Serum presets from the Unison Essentials free pack that can be found on our website, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. In the folder, there are over a dozen Serum presets from plucks, pads, leads, keys, guitars, basses, and 808s. I'm using the Pluck Pure of Tone preset here for the melody that we just listened to. My Time, it's in the key of F sharp or G flat major. We're going to be thinking in terms of G flat, and that's the first chord that we start on. Right away, we have an interesting chord coming up next, which is this guy. It's playing a dominant chord on the 3rd degree of the key. So this is called B flat dominant. Next, we have E flat minor. So the way that this dominant chord is working, and the way that dominant chords function in general, is that they are pulling our ear to a chord that it's a 5th away from. So the target chord here was E flat minor. What's the 5th note of E flat? It's B flat. And that's what's happening, right? We're playing B flat dominant, and that's taking us to E flat minor. See? Kind of sets our ear up to go there. The principle here is that we can play a dominant chord that's a 5th away from whatever chord we want to go to. After we go to E flat, we're going back to G flat, and now we're playing a dominant chord here. Playing a dominant chord on the 1. Next, we're moving into C flat, actually. I know this is kind of funky. Why don't we call this note B? G flat is a very funky key to play in. There are 6 flats in this key. It just ends up being that way. So we have G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, D flat, E flat, F, and G flat. F is the only natural note in this key. So technically, we're going to be calling this note C flat. That's the way it is. Okay, so we have C flat major now. You can think of it as B major as well, whatever. C flat major. This is the 4 chord of the key that we're playing in, right? Because G, A, B, C. And we're playing a major chord here, so nothing fancy about it. But then the very last chord, this chord becomes minor. So the 3rd falls down. So then we're playing 4 minor. This is actually one of my favorite harmonic moves in all of music. Playing in a major key, playing the 4 chord, and then turning it minor before coming back to 1 again. Last but not least, we have Roxanne. Roxanne, it's in the key of A major, and we're starting on its 2 chord, playing it as a minor 7th chord. So this is B minor 7. I'm voicing it without a fifth. I believe this is how they did it in the track as well, as far as I can tell. Then we're moving up to E, E13. This is a dominant chord with a 13 added to it. And then we're moving down to A major 7, and then up to D major 7. This is another very common progression. It feels like I'm saying that a lot every time I do a chord video, but it is. We have a 2-5-1, the most popular chord progression in all of jazz, starting on the 2, then playing 5, then playing 1. And like we talked about with the last track, remember, dominant chords like to go to 1. So that's what we have happening again, 5 to 1. We start on 2, we go to 5, and then we go to 1. So there's that 5-1 thing happening again. And E13 is a dominant chord, but there's just another note added to it. So this is the 13, which is equivalent to the 6. We're adding the 6th note of E to the dominant chord, and that's why we're calling it E13, just so you guys know. All of these chords are diatonic to the key of A major, so there's no fancy stuff going on other than some chord extensions that we're adding to each of these chords to make them sound a little bit more interesting. One question that may come up for you is, why isn't B minor the root of the key? Finding keys can be a long conversation on its own. Generally speaking, the best way to think about it, I think, is that which one of the chords feels most at home or most at rest when we land on it? 2 is pulling us to 5, 5 is pulling us to 1. There's like a chain of chords happening that are pulling our ear to A sounding like 1. That's how I hear it anyway. As soon as we hit A, then we're jumping into 4, being D major. So this is 1, moving into 4. Back to 2, 5, is 1. See how I can stay there? And it feels done. We're in the key of A. As with every video that I make and will make, I want to emphasize the importance of playing these chord changes under your fingers. Just listening to me talk about them isn't going to integrate this into your knowledge base. You need to play them and think about what you're playing, to think about what the notes are. Think about those chord degrees, play them while thinking about it. At first, it'll be very slow and difficult, but take my word for it, it will be endlessly beneficial to improving your musicality. Also, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, taking time to try to find out the chords on your own. Just do it. You'll be thankful that you did, even though I know it's difficult. As always, if you guys have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you there. And that's it for today. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.